Hi, this is Garibay, and this is an adventure module in a video. And this one is called Chelgan and Chirag. And Chelgan and Chirag are two bounty hunters. They're dwarves. They're both dwarves, right? So Chelgan and Chirag have been bounty hunting together for 30 years, and essentially, and they're kind of they're close to the heart of this adventure module. So essentially, what's going to happen is so basically the player characters. This adventure begins out on the open road. Okay. Now you'll notice I almost never, I don't think I ever start an adventure in a tavern. It's old play out, so I try to avoid that. Right. So I started a lot of adventures on the open road, and I really highly offer this up as a hook because I think it's really useful. So basically, out on the open road, it's logical for them to meet anyone, right? So the player characters to meet anyone. The other thing is, it takes so many things off the table. One of the biggest reasons why I stopped starting adventures in taverns is I felt very sorry for the poor tavern owners whose taverns constantly get burned to the ground with my player characters, right? Any player character adventure that starts with most of my players in a tavern, that tavern is going to burn to the ground. And the reason why is I always have a wizard, in there with some fireballs, or I got a fighter who's going to, basically, it's very unusual for my player characters to be in a tavern for 5 minutes without a fight breaking out. Someone offends them, they see the evil guy. There's just so many ways that fights can break out. The fights break out. My player characters are usually pretty powerful. A lot of them max out their characters, and they're boisterous and they're rowdy. And so it's just really common for there to be a fire. So the wizard either burns it down with their fireballs, or the fighter knocks over an oil lamp and it break, because people are getting thrown through windows, and my characters pick up tables, and my player characters pick up tables. There's just there's chaos everywhere, and so fires break out, which totally makes sense, in a medieval time setting, or a medieval based setting. And so it's one of the reasons why I started adventures on the open road is so that these poor tavern owners, they can keep their taverns without having them burned down and destroyed because a player character group happened to roll into their tavern, which happens really frequently. I think my player characters often can't remember how many inns they burned to the ground if they're there. Yeah, oh boy, it's just one of those things. Sorry, I found that really humorous. So, all right, back to it. So basically, the player characters are out on the road, and it's nighttime, right? So basically, the player characters are traveling, and they look up in the sky, and there's very bright, and one of the things is actually it's a fall night, and the leaves are kind of and they're walking the path right through actually sorry it's actually about a 20-foot wide road through, and there's forest on either side, but this is an established road. It is a dirt road, and it's fall, okay? And so these beautiful leaves are starting to come off of the trees and just blow in the wind gently, right? So you should really describe this as kind of a beautiful moment. That's another reason why I start adventures in the outdoors, is so I can really kind of give some flavor text and just kind of let them see the beauty of of what they're surrounded by. So it's a cool, temperate night. There's a breeze out. Maybe it's a little chilly, and the leaves are blowing through the wind. And that day, the leaves are starting to turn. So the characters remember that, but they can't see the color of the leaves. They can just see these slight shades of gray, white and dark on the leaves as they pass through. And the reason why is because it's all lit by moonlight, by bright moonlight. Okay, and so. And you could even tell them, like, you might even say, oh, someone dropped a coin pouch on the road, and you're able to see it by the bright moonlight. Okay, campaign mystery. I use campaign mysteries a lot, and so I always insert a mystery in my campaign, and so my players are always like, oh, it's this, right? And so I encourage them to guess what's happening in the scenario, and if they do, they get an EXP bonus, or any other type of like a Benny. A lot of players, a lot of game masters will call a Benny. some kind of like some way that you can benefit your players for just being smart and finding something cool in the game. All right, so this is a campaign mystery. So you want to get it across to them subtly, but it's a clue that there's bright moonlight out, right? All right, so at that point they're coming along and they're riding along the path, and they come to they go over a hill, and then they're coming down the hill, and they see Chelgan and Chirag, right? And so Chelgan and Chirag are these two dwarves, and they have a large cart pulled by two black steeds, right? And Chelgan and Chirag both have black armor on, and they're both carrying war hammers, right? And they have exquisitely braided beards, right? So Chelgan and Chirag are pretty traditional dwarves, and they are bounty hunters, right? But right now, their cart, right, which is modified right now, and has a cage on it. And in that cage, there are 4 human men, okay? And the 4 human men are dressed in rags, right? So they are warmly clothed, and you can see they even have like kind of raggy gloves and even hats, and there's even some like bedrolls in the cage. But there's on the cart is a cage with these 4 human men, right? And so Chelgan and Chirag are at work in the middle of the night, and they're traveling at night, right? Also, you're going to have to figure out a reason why your players are traveling at night. And so, so basically, usually they might be in a rush to get somebody for some of the things I've used to get my players there is they need to rush to get back to a celebration at one of they're close to one of the player characters' villages, and they have an annual celebration, and if they travel through the night they can make it, they can sleep in the morning, and then they can be ready for the festival that night. And so that's a good way that I've done that before. So you have to have them traveling at night to do this, right? So Chelgan and Chirag are working on their cart because their cart has hit a rut, a deep rut. Their wheel has gone into the rut, and it's actually broken, right? So it's actually broken the wheel, and so they're trying to get it out, and they're trying to fix it, right? So they're trying to pull it out, and they're also saying, even when we get it out, how are we going to fix this, right? So so they're really jammed up, right? So Chelgan and Chirag, as soon as they hear the player characters, they get up, and they stop their work, and they wipe their hands off, and they say, "Greetings, greetings, heroes." And they'll notice that. And basically, whenever people meet the player characters, whenever other non-player characters meet my player characters, they usually greet them as heroes, because the reason why is they have magical weapons, they have armor. These guys aren't farmers, and that's clear. Just the way they carry their weapons is clear, right? So, if you're wearing armor, and that's armor strapped on right, and you have a sword, and that sword is at an angle where it can quickly be drawn and taken into combat, any good non-player characters can be able to see that these guys are heroes, right? So I usually have them greeted as heroes, right? And so Chelgan and Chirag are chaotic good, right? And they like to capture evil characters for bounty. Actually, we don't. That's one of the campaign mysteries is their bounty people. So I'm not saying they're evil yet. We'll get there. And so they'll greet them as heroes, and they'll say, "How goes it?" And they'll just be cordial, and they say, "Well met, strangers. We see that you have a need to be traveling on in the evening as well." And they'll be friendly, right? And then so at that point, the player characters can say, they can just say, welcome, hi, Chelgan and Chirag, and they'll introduce themselves as Chelgan and Chirag, and they might exchange some manner, and then the player characters have a decision to make. Are they going to help Chelgan and Chirag fix their cart, right? So and Chelgan and Chirag will not ask. These guys are dwarves, right? So like they're pretty stout, and they're gonna solve their own problems, right? So and so the player characters may offer to help them, right? And if they do, so then what will happen to Chelgan and Chirag will, because they're jammed up, they'll accept the help, right? So as soon as they start helping them, or if they decide to not help them and move forward, in one way or another, as soon as they're either helping them or if they start to ride away, one of the young men from the cart is going to call out and he'll say, "Sir, "Sir, please help us. We've been taken by these two dwarves, and we're innocent. We do not know why they've taken us." Right? And so they're gonna play the card that they're innocent, right? And they'll say, "Help us, free us from these two crazed dwarves," right? And the dwarves will say, "Listen, we were bounty hunters. There were bounties on each of these men. We rounded them up. They were wanted by Prince Lig. There is there's a 1,000 gold piece bounty on each of their heads, and we will be turning them over," right? And so your player characters immediately are going to go, "Well, what are they wanted for?" Right? And Chelgan and Chirag, these guys are old school, right? So they are old school dwarven bounty hunters. They say, "We would like to tell you that, but these men are going to be tried by Prince Lig. And this is within his kingdom, and it is the politics of his realm, right? And we do not get involved in that. So we do not, there was more than enough evidence to put these men into chains, and we now have them in chains, but we do not feel it is our right or our privilege to tell you what has occurred. That is Prince Lig. You may go to him, and even if you wish, you may come along with us to actually turn these men over to Prince Lig. But we cannot tell you their crime. That is Prince Lig's business, right? So these guys are extremely professional, right? And they don't want to have beef with the guy who's going to pay them $4,000, right? So that's why they're not going to tell the player characters, right? And then the young man will say, "Listen, we were in our local village, and these guys came up, and they rounded us all up. They put us in this cart, and they're taking us off to Prince Lig. And Prince Lig is 40 miles away. We don't even know, we don't even live in his realm. So, and we are completely innocent. We've done nothing. We're all farmers. Why? We have no idea why these guys have enslaved us, right?" And so, if the player characters look at them, they'll look at them, and their hands do look like the hands of farmers. Their clothes actually were supplied by Chelgan and Chirag. Chelgan and Chirag take all the gear, and they actually give whoever they actually redress them in rags so that they have nothing on them. They can't be hiding things in their belt and their boot and all that. Chelgan and Chirag have all their gear with them, but they won't show them because the reality is they don't actually want any help from the player characters. They have everything they need to get these guys back. Now they're jammed up a little bit, but they think they're going to be able to fix this wheel after a while. It's just a delay, right? So at that point, if the player characters look at the young man and the young men, they'll see the rags, and so almost all the clues that on who and what they are, their hands do show that they're farmers. You can see that. The player characters, just with a high intelligence skill check, should be able to tell that, right? So that's a skill check opportunity right there. So they'll just use a flat intelligence skill check. They might be able to use knowledge, agriculture, or any knowledge skill, right? So those are all important, right? And so basically at that point, you're going to they're going to actually say they're going to look at the farmers. And they're going to notice that they look like farmers in every single way except one. And they have scratches. They have scratches on their face, they have scratches on their forearm, and they have scratches on their hands, right? Kind of deep scratches. And so that's it's just one of the things they're going to see, and that's about the only other clue, right? And so at this point, now your players have a decision point, right? I love bringing players to this, this decision point, right? Do they help these farmers and free them and fight Chelgan and Chirag to free them, right? Or, based on what the young men have said, or do they go along with Chelgan and Chirag and take them to Prince Lig just to learn for no other reason than to learn who and what they are? Because Chelgan and Chirag are not going to split the bounty. But you're saying, well, listen, if you care for these guys and you want to see what they're worth, what Prince Lig wants them for, then you can come along. No problem. Yeah. Do any of you sing? Chelgan and Chirag love stories and they love songs. Unless they're an elf, they do have beef with elves. Right? So and actually, if there are any elves in the party, Chelgan and Chirag will not invite them to come with Prince Lig. Right? All right. So at that point, you have this situation where Chelgan and Chirag are saying, "We got these guys, these criminals. We're taking over Prince Lig, and that's that." And then you have the prisoner saying, "Please free us. We're innocent." Right? So the players are going to make a decision. they're gonna go on their way, right? And that's a completely valid point. That's the end of the adventure. Chelgan and Chirag go off. They collect their bounty for these guys, and the player characters never know what they were wanted for. They don't know what happens with Chelgan and Chirag. They may run into them later, and then they can ask. But that is, I do not railroad players. I always have another prepared adventure, and the other adventure you can try is you can try Arcturus's Pet, so that you can have another adventure path for them to go on. So always, in every role-playing game I run, I make sure I have 2 or 3 prepared adventures, and I let the players walk away from whatever adventure I prepared to go on to another adventure or something they choose. I'm a real strong believer in that, right? So they can just go on their way, leave Chelgan and Chirag to fix their own wheel, right? Or they can fix the wheel and then move on. And again, they're not going to know. They could go with Chelgan and Chirag to Prince Lig and see what they're wanted for, and then they'll find out the answer to the campaign mystery. Any player can say the answer to the campaign mystery, and they can guess. And if they say it right, I'll actually tell them, yes, you're right, which means that at that point they're going to know what's going to happen in the adventure. Now, how are you handling that? How do you tell the players, yes, you guessed the campaign mystery to my adventure, right? You guessed the solution to my adventure. If they guess it, I tell them that you've guessed it. And the reason why is I trust my player characters to not metagame, right? So, one, if the player knows something, but their character doesn't, that's an opportunity for role-playing. So I just tell them, role-play how your your character would. Role-play them based on their knowledge, not on anyone else's, right? So this gives me an opportunity to give them EXP if they guess what's going on, or they can, and then they have to role-play and do what their character would do. So this is just a little something different. You guys don't need to go down that path. Just something I do. Another thing I do is I do not fudge rolls ever. Right? So I'm going to go into a little bit of talk about fudging rolls here. Basically, when a die is rolled at my table, D8, D20, D6, does not matter what. It matters what comes up on that face. If I have a player who is faking or cheating a die, me and him are going to have a conversation. I will not kick him out of the game immediately. I'll give him a chance to explain. But players who make a roll, then pick up the die real quick and make another roll, because they didn't like the first. I would run into that. Players who, roll a 4, roll a 4 and then don't do it, and so and say a higher result like an 18, so it's real pain in the butt, So, but I always make sure that I do the right thing, and when I actually make all my rolls in public, completely public, right? And so, very important, and it's very different take, right? So I never fudge a roll. So when a character dies in my game, I could say, you died because you failed your roll, and I didn't fix that guy's roll to keep him alive, and I'm not going to fix your roll to keep you alive. And it means that when the dice are rolled, it matters. I'm a big believer that when you roll a die, it's got to matter, right? And so, so that's an important thing. So, so basically, at this point, Chelgan and Chirag, and then basically, and then there might be a fight where the player characters free the farmers, right? And so that's the best, most exciting ending to this, right? And so if they do, it's been a bright night, right? There are clouds in the sky, and there were just enough clouds to cover the full moon. So if they free them, the farmers are wanted because they are werewolves. They have been scratched. None of them know it, but they are werewolves, and one day out of 30, they are going and killing people in Princess Lig's realm and then running back, right? So if they free them, they'll be running away, and then the clouds from the moon will move away, and they will immediately transform. So literally, Chelgan and Chirag, they'll be fighting them, and then at the same time, the werewolves will transform and fight the player characters right there, right? And so then it can go different ways. They can help Chelgan and Chirag and kill them all, right? Thing is, though, I usually have a little complexity with my monsters. So these farmers, they're innocent. They are werewolves, but they don't know they're werewolves, right? So they're really just human beings who have been cursed with lycanthropy, right? So heroes will actually want to try to knock them out, and then save them and explain, hey, you guys are, and Chelgan and Chirag at that point will say, yeah, they're completely werewolves. We knew it, but that was Lig's business. We're not telling you. These guys are hardcore professionals. Like old school. You kind of want to sell it that way, right? And but they're werewolves, and so then they can kill them all, which is kind of sad because they killed just 4 human beings who happen to be monsters. Some player characters will not have any problem with that, right? And then the other one is a different way to go is some of that they kill one, or they start to really beat back the werewolves and they all run away. So now you got 4 werewolves going in 4 different directions, and now you actually have another adventure where they can be tracking down the werewolves that they helped free, right? And so that's really kind of fun. So this is an adventure that I do. It's Chelgan and Chirag, and they're really I actually use them in other adventures as well. And so as I do more adventures and adventure modules in a video, you may see Chelgan and Chirag return. And so that is the adventure that you can use. And it's fun. It's got a mystery in the heart of it. I try to always have a mystery in the heart of my adventures. And it's just something really you can use, and I hope you really enjoy it. Thank you.